Penn State recruiting is on fire. They currently have the number 6 recruiting class, according to 24/7 Sports, in the 2022 recruiting class national rankings, and they have the 4th recruiting class for 2023. Those recruiting classes are 2nd and 1st in the Big Ten, respectively. They both have a combined 4 5-star recruits and 16 4-star recruits. So, what an impressive job by James Franklin and his staff for pouncing on recruiting. Recruiting is a critical part of having a successful football program. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're mainly talking about this because I and many of college football fans have an interest in Penn State after this season, because Penn State had some promising moments and they also had some pretty low lows, and they're kind of in this limbo where we don't know where they're heading toward. They could be trending up, especially with this recruiting class, and the hiring of Mike Yurcich. Maybe this was just a year where he had to work in his system, and next year could be a much better year for the offense. But at the same time, James Franklin's been 11-11 in his past 2 years, so maybe the program is just honestly trending down, and maybe James Franklin has hit his ceiling, period, and it's not going to go back to winning a Big Ten title like they did in 2016. So they're in this weird limbo mode, really. I mean, this year they got up to the number 4 ranking in the AP poll at one point. They beat teams like Auburn and Wisconsin, who at the time when they beat them looked pretty good and people had high expectations for them. And then they went into Iowa. They looked really good in the Iowa game. They were leading 17-3, and Sean Clifford goes down. Roberson comes in, very inexperienced, very green. Iowa did what they do to inexperienced quarterbacks. They picked apart and dissected Roberson like it was their day job, and they came back and won 23-20. And after that, Penn State lost, I think, 5 out of their remaining 7 games, including the bowl game, which is no one saw that coming. So it was a disappointing year. James Franklin then signed a 10-year contract extension for a lot of money, showing that he is loyal to the school and the school is willing to trust him. So he has job security. That definitely helped. The fact that was settled early before the bowl game, well before the bowl game, definitely helped in recruiting as well, as Penn State never really had any significant decommitments. They only kept adding to their recruiting class. I'm going to read an article by 24/7 Sports, and after that I'm going to individually, for probably a minute or two each, just discuss each of the 3 5-star commits, or at this point, signees. They're all either signed or enrolled. So I'll discuss those individually after reading this article and giving some more thoughts. So this article, again, is by 24/7 Sports. It's titled 9 Penn State Prospects Inside Final Top 24/7 for the 2022 recruiting class. And I'll link this down below so you can read it. 24/7 Sports produced its final top 24/7 rankings of the 2022 recruiting cycle Wednesday, placing 9 Penn State prospects among that collection of blue-chip talent. Following a late ranking surge for defensive lineman Danny Dennis Sutton, the Lions class features 3 5-star signees for the first time in the 24/7 Sports era. Quote, "We had a season that saw some unbelievable highs and some challenges as well, and nobody really blinked," Penn State head coach James Franklin said on signing day regarding the commitment of this group. "So I love the character in this class as much as the athleticism. When you see all types of drama right now in college football and recruiting, we haven't had a whole lot of that. I'm very appreciative and thankful for that. Florida State, for example, they have a lot of drama. It's just kind of looking at the polar opposite of Penn State's situation, losing their best commitment in Travis Hunter to Jackson State, losing a hard lean in Keon Coleman to Jackson State as well, and the drama surrounding that program. And then you also look at a school like, just let me think for a minute. Just really, I would say a lot of other schools. I mean, even Michigan had this with Damani Jackson. USC has had a ton of it with the amount of decommits they've had, the amount of commits they had when Lincoln Riley came there. It's all over the map. The NIL and many other things have just exploded the recruiting world, and Penn State has just been silently building, just sitting in the corner and doing their work. And that's admirable. Like I said before, recruiting successfully and just having a lock on commits is important. Speaking of which, just a little bit of a side note before I get back to reading this, Nicholas Singleton is, I think, the 4th highly ranked running back in Pennsylvania to stay at State College. That's important. He follows Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders and others there as well. So, featuring signees who represent 10 different states, this 23-player Penn State class is already underway with making an impact on campus. 5-star recruits Drew Aller and Nicholas Singleton are among the 8 freshmen who graduated high school early to enroll this month, setting the stage for participation in winter workouts and spring practices. We're all really excited, all of us enrolling early, Aller said. I think we're just really looking forward to being able to spend time with each other pretty much daily and just getting the Penn State experiencing what it's like to be a football player at Penn State. Carrying the number 6 class in composite national rankings and number 5 in 24/7 sports rankings, Penn State could still look to add to this group with college football's traditional February signing day nearing next Wednesday. As currently constructed, read for a review of this class's top 24/7 prospects and how each fit into the Nittany Lions' future plans. So we're briefly going to be talking about all of these guys, and then I'll go back individually to the 3 5-stars and discuss them a little more. QB Drew Aller, early enrollee. He's from Medina, Ohio. He's 6'5", 225 pounds. His 24/7 sports rating is 100, which is, the best you can be. He's the number 1 quarterback, number 3 overall, according to 24/7 Sports. And he committed in almost a year ago, on March 8th of 2021. He was originally a 3-star. He became a 4-star, slowly rising in the rankings. And to me, what fascinated me is he's in Ohio. He's in Ohio State's backyard after Quinn Ewers reclassified to 2021 and then left for Texas. Or there were rumors of that. I'm thinking, you got to pick him up. He's in your backyard. And unfortunately, if you're a Buckeye fan, to a certain degree, they offered him a little too late, and he stayed with Penn State. So Penn State going into Ohio, and you see this with Caden Saunders as well. They have some pretty good players from the state of Ohio. Pardon my cat trying to get in my way. Anyway, so he's impressive. There's a lot of comparisons to Josh Allen, and he's had a really talented senior season. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. Running back Nicholas Singleton. He's from Governor Mifflin, which is in Pennsylvania. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. He has a 98 rating. And ranking-wise, he's the number 1 running back, number 18 overall. This is according to 24/7 Sports, not the overall composite. Nicholas Singleton was National Gatorade Player of the Year, which was one day before signing day as he was awarded that. He capped off his prep career with an impressive week at the All-American Bowl. He follows Saquon Barkley, Journey Brown, and Miles Sanders as recent in-state running backs who continued their careers in state college. Them staying home making the running back room like running back university, Singleton said, I'm just trying to be in that place. Really impressive guy. He ran for over 10 yards a carry this past season at his high school. So he is a weapon, and I think out of all of the 5-stars, I would expect him, Nicholas Singleton, to see the earliest playing time, especially with how Penn State's run game has struggled. Defensive line, Danny Dennis Sutton. He's from McDonough School, which is in Maryland. He's 6'5", 255 pounds, another 98 rating, and he's the number 6 defensive lineman, number 27th overall. The updated 24/7 Sports rankings, the top 24/7 sent Dennis Sutton soaring nearly 70 spots from number 94 into 5-star territory. He didn't participate in game action during 2020, and he had an elbow injury which caused most of his senior campaign, but he showcased his elite skill set at the postseason showcase events. And again, another really impressive guy. He's fast, he's strong, he's big, and Penn State has been proven to develop very strong defensive lines over these past few years. We'll see what new defensive coordinator Manny Diaz has, but Brent Pry and just Penn State in general were really good on defense. Their defensive lines have always been solid. He's physical, he can do well against the run and rush the passer, Franklin says. So another impressive addition as well. Our other guy's Caden Saunders. He's an early enrollee. He's from Westerville South in Ohio, 5'10", 170 pounds. He's a 4-star with a 95 rating, the number 12 receiver nationally, and the number 76 overall. He's another guy to look out for. Again, another good recruit in Ohio that Penn State picked up on. That's critical, as Ohio is one of the states, just like I would say Pennsylvania is, that does have talent but is not necessarily in the South. It's in the North, which for Big Ten schools is kind of critical if you can to target those states and get recruits from there if you can. You also have offensive lineman Drew Shelton. He's from Pennsylvania, from Downingtown West. He's 6'5", 275 pounds. He has a 93 rating. He has a number 14 offensive tackle ranking, according to 24/7 Sports, and he's the number 156th overall commit. And he is the best offensive lineman in Penn State's senior class. He might see some early action as well. Penn State's offensive line loses some pieces, and they struggled mightily this year. You also have defensive back Cam Miller, another 4-star. Katron Allen, an early enrollee, a running back from IMG Academy in Florida. Him and Singleton at some point should be one of the better running back duos, if not potentially the best in the country. You also have wide receiver Anthony Ivy, defensive back Menke Flowers, and yeah, that wraps it up. I just briefly went over the last few names. I'm trying to mainly focus on the bigger names here, just because, but all of those guys do have and will likely have significant impact. Again, this recruiting class is phenomenal, and if Penn State has success, honestly, I'm going to mainly credit it to this class. I look at this class, and I don't necessarily see what can James Franklin do to these young men to help them into the future of the NFL, especially the 5-stars like Singleton, Aller, and Dennis Sutton. It's more like, what can this class do for Franklin? Can they win him a Big Ten title? Can they get Penn State back to what we thought of as the norm, an 11-10 win season with a potential win in their New Year's Six Bowl? Or can they even get him to the playoff? We'll see. So now I'm going to preview, just for a few minutes each, probably 1 to 2 minutes each, of the Penn State 5-stars. First, starting off with running back Nicholas Singleton. Nicholas Singleton is from Pennsylvania. He's the number 1 commit, the number 1 enrollee, actually. He's enrolled at Penn State early. In this recruiting class, he's number 30 nationally according to the composite rankings, 18 nationally according to 24/7 Sports alone. Again, 6 foot, 210 pounds, and he has a 4.59 40. His shuttle time is around 4 seconds. He has a 36-inch vertical, a 10, well, nearly an 11-second 100-meter dash, and he's overall really impressive. His projection is the first round according to his scouting report from Gabe Brooks. I'm not going to read all of that because only have limited time, but he's also compared to Nick Chubb as well, and we all know how good of a running back Nick Chubb is. Once again, he follows Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders, and Journey Brown, other guys from Pennsylvania who've continued their careers at State College, and all of them, except for Journey Brown, who sadly had a condition to where he couldn't play football, all of them have had successful careers in college and in the NFL. So Singleton, I would say, is going to be, out of all the 5 stars, the guy that you will see, in my opinion, the earliest. In his senior year, he had 165 rushing attempts for 2,049 rushing yards and 41 rushing touchdowns. He only had 4 receptions for 98 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Receptions, not rushes. Pardon me. That is over 10 yards per carry. 10 yards. And his highlight reel is just long runs where he is dodging defenders. You see his speed, his physicality, his, I guess you would call, like, finesse moves in a certain sense, his shiftiness. You see it all. His career, he has 452 rushing attempts for 5,050 rushing yards, 95 total rushing touchdowns. He's only had 7 receptions in his career for 120 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. An overall very impressive player. Again, I think the guy who's going to have the earliest impact. But perhaps the player who's going to have the most impact is quarterback Drew Aller. And I say this because Penn State, ever since Trace McSorley, mainly Sean Clifford, let's just put it plain and simple, is not going to be the guy to reach the playoff. At least I don't think. There are always exceptions to the rule. We've seen it with Stetson Bennett. You even saw it with Cade McNamara in my Michigan Wolverines, a guy that I didn't think could really get us much of anywhere, proved me wrong, was a great leader. He did more than enough to help us win and all. But still, the probability of Sean Clifford bringing Penn State to that next level is small, because having an elite level quarterback makes a huge difference. And Drew Aller is exactly that. Standing at 6 foot 4.5 inches, he weighs 232. He's the number 31 prospect in the nation, according to the composite. Number 3, according to just the original 24/7 Sports rankings. He's from Medina, Ohio. His projection is the first round. His comparison is Josh Allen, who is a phenomenal quarterback who's really grown in the NFL. And his career stats in 2021, he had 214 passing attempts for 305 completions. He passed for 4,443 yards, 48 passing touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. That's nearly a 7-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. On top of that, he also had 415 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. In 2020, he also had 2,962 passing yards for 26 passing touchdowns. And I would say he is one of the biggest risers in the group. Originally, Penn State was one of the few Big Ten Power 5 schools that offered him back when he was a 3-star. Mike Yurcich is his primary recruiter. He committed, and slowly but surely, he began to rise in the rankings from a 3-star to a 5-star. And in fact, that actually reminds me a lot of Josh Allen, just in a much shorter time lapse. Allen having one offer out of high school, Wyoming, and quickly rising through the ranks in that time all the way up to being a first-round NFL pick by the end of his collegiate career. Aller just seemingly got a lot more respect, I guess. Pardon me for the long time in saying that. Got a lot more respect in a much shorter period of time, for taking about a year since his original commitment in March 8th of this past season. He should have the longest standing impact, because having a guy like Josh Allen on Penn State, as long as they can improve their offensive line and run game, would create a deadly offense. We all know that Penn State is good wide receiver talent. They even have some solid tight end talent and even running back talent. The offensive line has somewhat held them back, along with Clifford as a passer in the past 2 years. But this is perhaps the nicest addition, and in a certain sense, the nicest steal for Penn State, as it was right out of Ohio State's backyard. And finally, you got Danny Dennis Sutton, who is from Maryland, and the biggest riser, at least in the past week, where he rose nearly, I think, 70 spots in the 24/7, in the top 24/7 rankings. He went all the way up from 94th to 27. That is crazy. I don't know. I don't think I've even seen that before. And I said this earlier, he had an elbow, pardon me. He had an elbow injury, which knocked him out for most of his senior year. He didn't play in 2020 due to COVID, and yet he was able to showcase enough talent and impress enough people to get ranked this high, which is an achievement. Showing out, and he should be a nice addition to their defensive line as they lose Arnold Ebiketie to the NFL draft, who was a prolific pass rusher and defensive lineman overall. And he could honestly have an impact as well. I mean, look at what Ohio State's doing with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. They gave them some playing time, rotated them around. Who says that Penn State can't do the same thing with Danny Dennis Sutton? While Aller and Singleton are enrolled, Dennis Sutton is not yet enrolled. He has signed, though, with Penn State, and along with the rest of Penn State's recruiting class, there is no reason to expect that he won't be at Penn State and participating in their summer and fall workouts. That's all for this video, just discussing Penn State and their recruiting class. To me, it's impressive. Honestly, this group of young men, as a Michigan fan here, I don't think Michigan, even under Harbaugh, has had a recruiting class that has been this good in a certain sense. The good recruiting classes that my Wolverines had have just been taken out by attrition. A lot of them have transferred away. But this recruiting class, if Franklin plays his cards right, can have a great impact. Because I see, with Aller and Singleton especially, a Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley remake. And we all know what that did and the success that those two brought Franklin as a coach at Penn State. They brought Franklin his Big Ten title, and they brought him nearly another one in 2017, where Penn State lost, I think, by a combined 4 points in their two losses. So can Franklin, with this recruiting class, return Penn State back into the contention picture? Let me know down below in the comment section. That's all I have to say for this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. My giveaway, I'm going to announce it tomorrow as well, as we just hit 3,000 subscribers. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys around.